All right, good evening, everybody. Going to give just a couple of moments to make sure that we are circulating under this algorithm. Tonight, we are doing another legacy talk, and we had to come back to this Diddy situation. So, another Diddy lawsuit breakdown. We talked a little bit about the Cassie lawsuit, but tonight we said, you know what? Diddy got another lawsuit under his belt. So we have to break that sucker down. So good evening, guys. Good evening.
Yes.
Please click share, send this video to somebody that you love.
Definitely.
Please subscribe to the channel. And Lisa, anything you want the folks to know before we get started?
Oh, I'm telling you, we just, I think we're going to bring a little joy into the situation this evening.
Lord.
Talking about Miss Joy Dickerson Neal as the plaintiff in lawsuit number 2. We knew the floodgates would be opening once you settle that first one. Here they come, running through the gates. And we're going to see what this second one is about. But before we can get all the way through this one, we understand there's already a number 3 that's also fresh out the gates. So we'll try to see if we can touch upon that as well.
All right. So, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Two Lawyers Talk Legacy, brought to you by LearnBiz, the podcast. I am your co-host, Sandy, and the lovely Lisa is here with me tonight. I don't even know how to get started, but to maybe just play a quick video, because I figure, man, the only way you can really get through this process is to see what the people talking about and make sure that you kind of share what's happening in the streets. But I will say this, there have been so many different stories circulating right now since this whole Diddy and Cassie lawsuit settled. And it'll almost make your neck spin in shock that this many stories are coming out. And you're like, folks, like, why didn't y'all share these stories before? Like, why y'all always just, y'all leaving stuff, to imagination or something? It's like, share these stories, man. Let people know what's going on.
Fill in all the juicy details. People want to know.
Yeah, they definitely need to fill in some details. So let's take a look. I'm going to share this tab here so that we can talk a little bit about this Diddy situation. But guys, please, again, click share. Please let us know where you're tuning in from tonight. And don't hesitate to join us in the chat with this conversation. Lisa, let me know if my sound doesn't sound crazy here.
Okay.
You hear that?
I can hear it, definitely. You can turn it up a little bit if you like.
Filed a federal lawsuit in New York today.
Good.
He felt compelled to do so before New York's Adult Survivors Act expires. Combs denies the allegations. His attorney says Ventura has been threatening to write a damaging book about the pair's relationship unless Combs pays her $30 million.
So this is basically the media coverage before, like, the Cassie lawsuit was filed. And then as soon as this came out, we then came out with some more lawsuits. So let's talk a little bit about the lawsuit that we just saw, which is, what's the name of the lady?
Her name is Joy, Miss Joy Dickerson Neal.
All right, so I'm going to pull that lawsuit up and let's start breaking this sucker down. So this lawsuit was filed literally, I think, when that whole window closed.
Yeah, I think if I got the date right, it was filed on November 23rd. Would that have been the day before Thanksgiving?
I believe so.
Which means that, under New York law, there's 30 days. I believe he has 20 days here. Either 20 or 30 days after service to file an answer. So we will be awaiting an answer from Mr. Sean Combs to this lawsuit filed by Joy Dickerson Neal.
Yeah, so I do see that they give the attorney 20 days to file a notice of appearance, and then they give 30 days if service is not personally served in New York. So they got a little time to respond. This was filed by Phillips and Associates Attorneys at Law, PLLC. We're going to have a lot of these to look
Hmm.
at. So let's
Oh
take a
yeah.
look at the breakdown of this suit. Now, one thing, disclaimer, we not your lawyers. We are literally just taking some time as attorneys to kind of break down some of the language because I think a lot of times people see these lawsuits and they just assume some things, and many don't actually read the content of the lawsuit. So
That's
we're going to
right.
go ahead and break this down just a little bit. So first, we have to notice first that the suit is not just against Mr. P. Diddy, Sean Combs. The suit is actually against Sean Combs, Bad Boy Entertainment, doing business as Bad Boy Records, and Combs Enterprises LLC. So it's
All of
against
them.
all
All
of
of
them.
them. All of them. This is
And
against all of
if
them.
let's skipping ahead a little bit in thought, if he were to settle a suit like this, it's not really likely that he's going to be the one pulling money out of his pocket, right? Because you got these business entities involved, probably have some insurance coverage, probably have money in the business that's going to cover these expenses. So, the unfortunate part about a lot of this is many times the person that you actually want to pay may not actually be the person that's going to pay.
Right.
All right. So, in looking at some of the basics, so it says the nature of the action: plaintiff brings suit against defendants to redress the substantial and lifetime injuries she has suffered as a result of being drugged, sexually assaulted, and abused, and being the victim of revenge porn that Sean or P. Diddy created and distributed. Now, one thing I will say is whenever you see certain things in these complaints, understand that the trigger points happen as you go through this, because on the plaintiff side, of course, they're going to say all the things, right? But on the defense side, so if Puffy is defending himself through his attorneys and are these entities are defending themselves, they're already going to start chipping away at this from the very beginning, questioning whether or not there was a substantial or lifetime injury to this person, whether he actually drugged this person, whether there was an actual sexual assault, whether this person was abused, whether they were a victim of revenge porn. All of these things should already trigger in your mind. There has to be some documentation or some support to this. Um, Good evening, Rigo. Thank you, Rigo, for
Hey,
joining us.
Rigoberto.
All right, so let's go through this here. What else do we see? So, in the second point here, they break down the actual law that they are using in order to file this complaint. And you'll notice the laws that are listed are several. So we have something that has to do with like human trafficking law. We have something that
Mm-hmm.
has revenge porn. We have something that is also revenge porn under some different codes and things like that. Gender
So,
motivated violence
how would you
protection.
break that down in the kind of like the most simplest of terms? Revenge porn is what?
I really don't know how they define revenge porn in this. So we'd have to understand that revenge porn may have a definition according to us, but according to the law, revenge porn is going to be defined according
Yeah.
to what they have
Law.
used in this.
Yeah.
Just so to be clear, because a lot of times people will just pull up a definition and be like, "Oh, this is revenge porn." Well, not under this particular New York law. They're going to have some very definitive things, and in this complaint, I'm certain that they're going to touch on some things as well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Rigo says Diddy is going to jail just like R. Kelly. Hey, maybe they will be cellmates. Well, here's the unfortunate part, Rigo. None of these are criminal charges. So jail is not even in this conversation unless somebody actually comes forward that is filing a criminal charge within the statute of limitations or the period of time in which you can file a lawsuit. Jail, you can throw that conversation right out the door. And this is where I find, I'm gonna put us back on screen, Lisa. This is
Mm-hmm.
where I find that social media is the worst,
Yeah.
because I see too many times people talking about, oh, he's going to jail, he's going to do this, he should be arrested, lock him up, blah blah. And I'm like, well, that's a great idea in theory, but number one, he hasn't been criminally charged with anything, and number two, he hasn't been criminally convicted of anything.
Right.
Add insult to injury, even though there was a settlement in Cassie's case, that settlement means nothing in terms of whether he did or didn't do anything. That
Right.
settlement means nothing at this
Yeah.
point.
he doesn't have to admit liability to settle. As a matter of fact, that's why you settle, because you don't have to admit liability. So that's not a factor in the settlement. You're settled irrespective of who's right and who's wrong. That doesn't even come up in the settlement. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and so that's one of the the biggest misconceptions that I see in social media is people keep talking about, he's a criminal, he's a R, he's a this, he's a that, and I'm like, none of that has been proven in a court. The court of public opinion is talking and coming up with their own answers, but here's the dangerous thing that I find with the court of public opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to think of it from this perspective. Put the celebrity aside. Imagine if this was your brother, your dad, your boyfriend, your husband, a male in your life, and there was someone who filed this exact complaint against that person. Would you want that person to be seen as they did it? Or would you
Yeah.
want that person to be able to go to a court and actually present their side and let the other side be presented? So
Right.
that's where I say we're in a slippery place, because a lot of people want to already, because something was filed, the answer is automatically, he did it. See, there's a second one. So definitely he did it.
Right.
No, that's
There's
not
that
correct.
tendency. There's that tendency. Even in the law in many cases allows you to show pattern and practice from past incidents to be able to show that a person tends to do whatever the thing is that you're alleging in the current instance. So using pattern and practice is sometimes how we get in these spaces. But just because someone was charged once, just because they are charged a second time doesn't mean they're guilty, because they were charged, like Sandy just said before. You
And
can't
keep
you
in
you
mind,
gotta you
charges
gotta separate that in your brain.
And keep in mind, charges mean nothing unless something actually was done with those charges. You can mention that all you want, but unless you can substantiate those charges with some kind of conviction somewhere, and even with these complaints, 100 people could file a complaint. The question is, are any of these people going to go through a full case to present their case? Many of them are not. Many of them are going to settle. And here's where you get the pushback from people who say, "Oh, these are just money grabs. Oh, these are just people who are just trying to get money because the person's rich." Well, that could be true for some,
Yeah.
but you also have to read these complaints for what they are, right? Somebody is making an allegation. They're saying something against a person.
Right.
Does that mean that automatically what they're saying is true just because they
Mhm.
filed it?
Nope.
No,
Not
no.
at all.
But it
It's just
also
an
doesn't
allegation.
mean that we can dismiss somebody's complaint, right? We need them to have an opportunity to be heard.
Guess what? It also doesn't mean that people aren't going to look at you differently when someone goes through the trouble of filing a complaint in public court, making a public record of that.
Right.
It can change the way people begin to look at you after that. Now, that can happen whether you're convicted or not. People can look at you differently.
Yeah, and that's true. And I'm very careful about that thought. And here's
Hmm.
where my pushback always comes back to. If I were being accused of something, would I be okay with this thought? And I say no, I'm not okay with that. That's why I'm not one of those people, as I look at social media, co-signing the stuff that I see, because I'm seeing, unfortunately, a lot of negative behaviors, men versus women wars,
Yeah.
um, actual victims of abuse who are, feeling some vindication because someone else is going down for whatever it is. And it's like, it's unfortunate because the feelings, while warranted because you were actually a victim of abuse, you can't just make someone else's case your example, right? I understand that many times there's that feeling of, well, I didn't get my case taken care of, but I want to see this other person's case handled this way, that way, and the third. But you
Yeah.
can't automatically label somebody as they did it just because you feel like, well, someone did it to me and what she said sounds true, so I believe her. And I'm like, I think I need people to allow information to come out and allow the process to happen.
In
And
other
that's not happening.
words, each case stands on its own 2 feet.
Absolutely.
Like, don't look at the fact that, oh, this person alleged and this allegation sounds just like the last allegation that somebody else made. And two or three people made the same exact allegation. They almost all sound like the same exact allegation. See, that's the wrong way to add up the facts on a case, each person's incident must stand on its own and its own credibility. Rise, what's that said? It must either survive or fall on its own sword. Period.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that there is going to be some movement in some of these cases so that people can feel a better understanding of process. Because I'll go to an example of the Johnny Depp trial. I think that at some point during that trial, especially the early points, there probably were many people that were looking at Johnny Depp like, oh, okay, he did it, right? Then there may be another batch of people that are looking at Amber Heard and saying, okay, nah, he didn't do that, right? Or, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, everything she says is true, and vice versa, right? There are people
Mm-hmm.
on either side that probably had certain things to say. But when we actually watched that trial, what did we see? Two, they were just lunatics with each other, both of them. And I'm gonna be honest with you, at some points I was like, dang, I think they should just find both of y'all liable and kick both of y'all out of this courtroom. Like, that's how I felt watching that trial. But when you really listened to the evidence and went through everything, it was very clear in many instances that there were things that Amber was doing that was impacting the situation. And while there's no justification for any of the behaviors on either side, I didn't see that situation in the same light as maybe another situation where somebody is blatantly doing it's like one-sided. In that case, they both were just literally going to town on each other, and he would paint it in one way, she would paint it in one way. And the reason we got to see that play out is because there were actual videos, right? So when you saw the
Mm-hmm.
evidence, you were like, oh no, nope, she was wrong. Nope, he was wrong there. Nope, she was
Mm-hmm.
wrong. So here, the unfortunate part about this Diddy case is we haven't seen anything yet. Because if this case settles, and the next case settles, and the next case settles, all we're going to get is Diddy has done nothing technically, because technically nothing has stuck to him. Now,
It's gonna
court of
look
public
like
opinion,
yeah.
different story, but I don't flow with court of public opinion personally.
It's gonna look like he's just putting out fire after fire after fire
Right.
if he keeps settling them, and that is gonna have some impact overall on his credibility as well. So there's different reasons why someone will say, oh no, I'm taking this to trial, I'm gonna take this all the way,
Yeah.
and why someone would say, no, I'm just not gonna deal with this and let all of this come out, good, bad, or ugly. But I do notice, remember, we just talked about the fact that each allegation should rise or fall on its own, in terms of the strength of the allegation. Well, in this complaint, I think it's on number 22 or 21, it talks about that Mr. Combs has a history of committing physical and sexual violence against women, and it goes through and it names different women. For instance, it names someone, a Cindy Rueda Combs, a personal chef. In allegation 22, it names an ex-girlfriend named Gina Huny. In 2019, it names Cassie Ventura. They spelled her name wrong, but it names Cassie in November of 2023. So, as recently as that, this lawsuit is naming other people to try to bolster the allegations that this young lady is making in her complaint, to kind of show that there is, in fact, what she wants the court or a jury to believe, that there is, in fact, a pattern and practice to his conduct.
I'm be honest with you, the only thing this is bolstering is a very nicely drafted complaint that plays very well in the social media space. Because unless you have police reports, unless you have criminal charges somewhere, unless you have videos, unless you have witness testimony, those kinds of things,
Yeah.
because all
Yeah.
of the people you're mentioning right now, the question is, have any of them had any cases that have had any evidence? Again, police reports, those types of things, right? And have any of them filed any criminal, gone to the police about it? Have any of them done things that would justify a statement that, upon information and belief, he has a history of committing physical and sexual violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
You said
Mm-hmm.
committing. So that means you should have documentation showing that he was found to have committed. Now, when you talk about Cassie's case, for example, Cassie detailed in an interview what he did, right? Sorry, not Cassie, the Gina, the girlfriend. She detailed in an interview how he physically abused her. However, did she file a case?
Not that I know
So
of.
she's just making an allegation. So this is not any kind of documented, I have been found to have done. And that's where I find that these become slippery slopes, because you're documenting things in a way that really makes it difficult for people to process. Because again, this is playing out in social media. We don't know that this is going to see the light of a courthouse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it's
All right, so
interesting.
Tim, we got a guest here in the building. Tam Rill says the
Hey,
people
Tamriel.
gabbing about this on social media are emotional, can't take that seriously. I agree with you. I think that many folks are wrapped up in the emotion of what's happening in these situations and reading, allegations, or listening to interviews and listening to the information. But unfortunately, none of that matters in the context of these cases, right? A
Mm-hmm.
case goes through a process. And
Right.
in the process, even though we're reading this complaint and it says all of these things, like this allegation on number 21 that says,
Mm-hmm.
upon information and belief, he has a history of committing physical and sexual violence against women as documented in publicly available lawsuits and extensive media coverage. Well, the media coverage, I throw that out the window, because unless the media coverage is talking about he was convicted of something or he was found liable for something, these are just speculation. These are just allegations. And then the part about him having documented, physical and sex and essay against women, documented publicly in lawsuits. Again, a lawsuit is just that, a suit. But until you get a result from that suit, you have zero. His suit with Cassie tells you all you needed to know. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing there, right? As far as the law is concerned. Now, public opinion, people can gab if they want to. Keep gabbing. But honestly, I don't like the precedent that this is creating. It's creating a situation where, so now people are going to be able to file cases, put them out into the public domain, and then there's going to be no accountability for how that information plays out. So again, put
This
celebrity
is
aside,
1991 too, mind you, just
right?
to insert that. This is from, so this allegation goes all the way back to 1991. And in the complaint, the young lady even says that she knew of Mr. Combs's reputation, but that she had reluctantly, she said she knew of his reputation for abusing women. That's somewhere along allegations 36 and 37. And then somewhere around allegations 40, she says that she reluctantly agreed to go on a date with him, who on that date ended up sexually assaulting her. That is the allegation and the basis of the complaint here that she's making.
Lisa, you're on the stand. I say, Miss So and so, you said that you knew that this person had these particular behaviors. Wouldn't that be a reason not to go with him?
Yeah, that would be a reason not to go with him, but the fact that you still go with him doesn't give someone the right to rape you. It doesn't matter, right?
Well, somebody graping someone, um, yes, there are issues there, right? But you're making an allegation, right? What
Yes.
what information is going to come out in this case? You're going to have somebody sitting on the stand. I'm going to have to go through the whole storyline. So you say you reluctantly went with this person. Did you have anybody
Mm-hmm.
with you? You knew about his
No.
history. Why would you go with like what in a logical mind would say go with this person that you know has this particular history, and you reluctantly go with them? Like, you had your friend with you, Nothing in that conversation. Like, I just don't see that playing out
Because it
nicely.
happens to young girls all the time. She made a bad decision to go along with him.
How old was she
He,
then?
I believe she was in college. It was 17 or 18, somewhere in there, maybe 19, but she was fairly young. But she made
She was
this.
also in videos with him, was she not?
I think she did some of that, yeah.
I
But
I don't I don't like how these things play out. And again,
but if I could finish my point,
go
though,
ahead.
a lot of young girls make those decisions, bad decisions, to go off with these guys who are much more experienced, who offer them some drugs, a blunt, or something like that, which is what she alleges in this case, except in this case, this particular blunt knocked her out. And she doesn't remember much of what happened after she, quote unquote, hit the blunt. She ended up in his place, and she claimed she was assaulted there. So she made a bad decision, but that she didn't deserve that outcome, certainly.
But that's the problem, though. She's making an allegation after making a bad decision, right? But the
Yeah.
question then becomes, now we have to dissect all of the factors that played out to determine whether or not what she says actually happened to her. The reason, and this is where we go into this breakdown of why do people settle these cases if you have such a strong case. I hear people debating back and forth. Oh, if you have such a strong case, it's just all about the money, right? If it wasn't all about the money, you would have gone forward with your case. Well, no. People will oftentimes settle because guess what? The conversation that's going to happen on the stand with this woman and his defense attorney is not going to be pretty,
Mm-hmm.
because that person is going to go through her decision making. They're going to bring forth situations. They're going to bring forth people. They're going to bring forth documentation. They're going to show, oh, you were in a video with him here. So you didn't seem to have a problem going with him there. How did you say this was reluctant? You look very happy over here. You look there. So the dissection of someone's experience is going to be one of the issues that's going to be had. And I
Mm-hmm.
love when people use the storyline that young people make poor decisions and things like that. The problem is many times young people aren't held accountable for their decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes things happen, unfortunately, based on their decision making. Now, whether this was grape or not, we don't know. We never will know because this happened so long ago. I don't know what's going to be presented in this case. What I don't like, though, is when you pull a case like this out of the woodwork from years ago, you now have a big challenge ahead if this case actually sees the light of a courthouse. So, and Tom, let me see. Tamrill says it's the grooming that is done. We had a whole thing. I was looking at something talking about this grooming. And I've been seeing a lot of people having this conversation about grooming and young girls, going through these adult experiences. And it's a very touchy subject because, I think back to school experiences, and you have folks in high school dating men, grown men, right?
Mm-hmm.
Young girls 16, 15, 17, 18, dating grown men
Right.
willingly, right? But obviously underage and not understanding the ramifications of those types of behaviors. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I've seen a lot of people on social media arguing, well, where were their parents, right? Where was this? Where was that? But on the one hand, you can say, where were their parents and they were making poor decisions. But on the other hand, you have a grown person that is engaging with somebody who's underage. Many times, yes, a grooming type process takes place. But many times
Yes.
also, there are unfortunate situations where people are brought into a place that is an adult space, and they're coming in as adults, right? How many
Yeah,
stories do we hear of young girls coming into places, fake ID, all this stuff? So
but in this case, we're talking about someone who's very young in their career versus someone who's very seasoned, used to people pandering to them because of their status in the music industry, knowing exactly how to take advantage of people and use them to his benefit ultimately, and his sexual gratification, which are the least in the allegation. So those are the things that are alleged. And so when you compare it to that type of situation, generally when you go into a courtroom, my experience is that people tend to have more sympathy, or at least jurors will tend to have more sympathy for a victim who they feel is kind of taken advantage of, green, doesn't know much, wet behind the ears, that person can tend to end up with a lot of sympathy factor from a jury. And, defendants are concerned about those type of dynamics. That might be a reason why they might decide to go ahead and settle a case
I mean, I
as
think it's
well.
a reason to settle, but I also think it's an unfortunate reason that plays into the courtroom that should not. I think, unfortunately, a lot of times the sympathy takes over the evidence, and you don't really get. I think it depends on who you are, whether or not you're going to get a fair shake, right? If you got the bread, you're gonna get that attorney that's going to be able to fight that case. But imagine the folks that don't have the deep pockets that a Diddy has, who come up with a charge like these. I think it
Right.
just creates a bit of a slippery situation. And no matter where you sit in this particular case conversation, there's an argument to be made on both sides. There is not a right answer here. This is a very challenging type of case. And that's why, again, both sides have reason to settle. There's not really a slam dunk for Diddy, and there's not a slam dunk for the alleged victim either. So these leave a lot of room for this
Right.
settlement talk, and it's not
Right.
a money grab. It's settlement, right? Both sides have come to an agreement of it's more beneficial to me than not to wrap this up now and take what
Absolutely.
I
And
can get.
And so there will be some decisions made in the Combs's camp and the bad boy camp. And if the numbers are right, I'm sure this young lady may decide, like, I don't want to put myself through this trial, this spectacle of a trial. And if he can pay me for all the suffering and there's a number that's right for that, then she may settle and just go away. But
Well, this was filed on the 23rd. It's the 29th. So I'm a little
so
curious as to whether or not they feel that the allegations will withstand water. This could be one of those that might go a little further than we think.
it really could, but sometimes just like that little evidence that's left unaddressed, if there's just something there that ties her and puts her in the same place and same space and time, based on her allegation, that could be enough to bolster her credibility about anything else she says that happened in that room with him. So he needs to be really careful and think that through. But I, like we talked about this, once one of these things gets started and there's one settlement, the floodgates will open. And
Yeah.
so
I'm not banking on a
um
settlement on this one though.
you don't think
I
so?
have a little bit of a gut feeling um, that if it settles, it's not going to be because of Diddy. I think it'll be because of the business interests. I think that there are some things here that could be broken down. Um, there's some elements of reading this complaint that give me that defense attorney hat that says, okay, if we can do some discovery, we might be able to flesh out a few things and present some things on both sides to say, hey, we got this. Your client says that this happened, but here's what we have. And then on the other side, they'll be like, well, here's what we got, right? So
Oh my
now we're
god.
going to play do we need to go forward, or are you going to take this little money?
It is so interesting in this allegation. This is very interesting. I'll be very quick about it, but it's talking about how after this happened to her, she said she tried to put it behind her. People basically say you can't go up against someone like him. You'll never make it in the industry. She tried to put it all behind her and move on about her life. But you know what made this thing have a resurgence in her life again, an emotional resurgence? You know what caused it? The lawsuit filed by Cassie Ventura. That's what she alleges. She
The
says,
only problem is
let me just say,
she's not Cassie.
plaintiff's emotional trauma resurges. Plaintiff has spent years trying to recover from the emotional trauma she experienced at Combs's hands. During the COVID, this is number 93. During the COVID-19 pandemic, plaintiff spent hours rereading her journals and digitizing them. However, she felt physically ill once she reached the time period in which she met Combs. Plaintiff could not stomach continuing with the project. And then it says it was the filing of the lawsuit about his abuse of Cassie Ventura on November 16th, 2023, that forced her to face his assault again. So it was after that she decided, I'm going to come on with it.
Guess what? If she has the documentation, if she has the information, she's going to get what she needs to get. Tamrill says, not a money grab. I think Bad Boy is over. They are chipping away at Diddy. Diddy is not worth the entire pie. And now there is blood in the water. I mean, guess what? We'll see. I feel like we need to wager some coins or something. Be like, I bet you $1. I bet you $2. I bet you $5. But we'll see. I don't really. I feel like enough days have passed right now for there to be some kind of a thought. But I have a feeling in this one there may actually be a response, and maybe they may go to the level of some initial stuff, maybe some initial discovery.
Oh, wait. One thing, quick aside while you said some initial stuff here. It looks like girlfriend was not able to finish college, and she's blaming that on him. She says as her subconscious associates her studies with the assault, because at the time she was in school when she experienced all this assault from Mr. Combs. So she couldn't do that. Combs's conduct forever changed the trajectory of her career, denying her what would have been a lucrative and successful career in the music industry. And one last thing, plaintiff is confident that she can prove her case through at least a dozen witnesses to testify to the severe emotional distress and harm that she has experienced after the assault.
I mean, it sounds good. I'm just curious to see if this is going to see the light of anything. I think all of the things that we're reading about in these complaints, it's great in theory. I just don't know where it's going to go. I would like to see one of these cases go full-fledged. That's my desire. I would like to see no settlement. Let's go straight full-fledged. Let's present everything. And if we're gonna get him, get him. If he's liable for what she says, get him. Because you'll get, if all things are lined up, you'll get not only the money, but you'll also get the gratification of knowing that he is now actually someone who has been found to have done this.
But this allegation right here, this one allegation, I would be concerned about if I were the defendant in this. Defendant, this is number 108. Defendant Combs has engaged in outrageous conduct by unlawfully administering to plaintiff a narcotic or intoxicating substance, transporting her, forcing her to engage in sexual intercourse, creating a video recording of the sexual intercourse, and distributing the recording throughout New York State without her consent.
Oh, that's an easy one. If you're saying that he distributed something, there's going to be something. So that this is where I say, as we're reading through this complaint, these key things in the complaint, forget all this other stuff about talking about her life experience. These key things that can be tied to something physical are great corroborating factors. The question is, are we ever going to see it? I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know. Tamrill says, I wonder what she's doing now. I don't remember seeing what she's doing now. And transporting. What was the part? Transporting her? Was this the whole thing with taking her from New York?
Her, yeah. Apparently, yeah, I guess where'd he go? Was it from Jersey to New York? I don't know. But yeah, from across state lines. So there's a human trafficking allegation in here. It says she's the victim of sex trafficking within the meaning of New York penal law. And it says she was administered narcotic or intoxicating substance in New York, transported her, forced her to engage in sexual intercourse. It doesn't say specifically
I think it was
where.
transporting her from one place to another because there was the night that she was raped, there was some issue about them going to different places. So I
Right.
think that that's how they got in that human trafficking thing. Because remember, with human trafficking, the movement of a person, even if it's within, a particular area, the movement of the person is what assists with this idea of trafficking the person.
The
Um,
allegation is distributed throughout the state. So there you go. So it doesn't have to be across lines for sex trafficking, like you said, Sandy, from one place to another,
right,
even within that same jurisdiction. So there you go, right there. And then I didn't even know there was a thing called revenge porn, but here it is defined. Let me just read that really quick. So revenge form porn under New York's state civil law is this: any person depicted in a still or video image, regardless of whether or not the original still or video image was consensually obtained, shall have a cause of action against an individual who, for the purpose of harassing, annoying, or alarming such person, disseminated or published or threatened to disseminate or publish such a still or video image where such an image was taken when such person had a reasonable expectation that the image will remain private, and depicts an unclothed or exposed intimate part of such person or such person engaging in sexual conduct as defined in the statutes. There you go. So basically, you have something like you embarrassing on somebody that's of a sexual nature, and you
right.
like you try to say something to somebody. I'm gonna show them what all you did in this, like.
And understand that when somebody presents a law like this that they're utilizing against a defendant, they're going to have to break down these pieces to demonstrate that they satisfy each aspect of this law according to the way that this law is worded. This is where a lot of times the plaintiff side and the defendant side will have a lot of breakdown and back and forth because each thing, each word, each issue is going to be scrutinized to a level to demonstrate whether or not it fits this statute or whether or not it's outside of the scope of this statute. So that's important to know as well.
Well, if
Um,
you can't consent because you were in, administer a narcotic or something like that, and you have no ability to consent, that is an issue. But like you said, you proof is very important to the extent you can show it.
All right, so let me look at some commentary here. Rigo says he also hangs out in Vegas, so that's state to state transportation. And Rigo says from Florida that he has a residence in Vegas where he hangs out. So, I mean, yeah, his movements are definitely going to be a hit against him as he goes through any further complaints. I've only
Mm-hmm.
heard of so far three. I don't know if
Yeah.
there are any others that are going to pop up against him. Let me see what Tam Rill says. So he blackmails them. I mean, I don't know necessarily how he does what he does. I think when you're in an industry like the music industry where there are so many things at play, I don't even know if you have to do too much because if your career is in the hands of someone, that's why she's suing the businesses associated with him. If you're in in a position where you can impact my career, I really don't have to do much. Just the
That's
thought of
it.
you
That's
being,
it. I
just the thought
mean,
of you being of influence.
right. I can embarrass the crap out of you and make you look really bad if you think about saying something. And people might not look at this video and think, oh, she's intoxicated or she's under the influence of narcotics. They could just see, oh my, this is just some freaky chick doing all these crazy, wild things, and just form really bad impressions.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we should, in going over this complaint, I just want folks to understand that, we are not pro Diddy, pro, whoever filed whatever complaint. We are simply two lawyers talking about how this
Legacy.
impacts a legacy. We want people to understand how these legal processes work and dissect these complaints. We're probably going to pop another one, do another video on one of the other ones. There was a Jane Doe complaint that was filed. So the alleged victim's identity it seems like they're going to be concealed in the process. I'm not sure what the basis of that is, but we'll find out, I'm sure. Um, but we definitely want folks to not be on this. I'm on this person's side or I'm on that person's side. We want people to understand the process because the process is what matters. And that's why looking at things like this, I would hope that it would encourage folks who are having experiences where somebody is essaying them or graping them or doing anything to them, that they feel empowered to file a suit, to go to the criminal courts, to go to the civil courts at the time that it's happening when things are fresh. Because when you have situations like this is a long time that has elapsed. And it's going to be a huge undertaking. I know the complaint looks very, there's a lot of stuff in it, but it's not as simple as it looks, right? Every single piece of this complaint is going to be dissected by Diddy's attorneys. And just as strong as this complaint looks, it wouldn't surprise me what the response to this complaint would look like, right? So we have
He's
to
just
really
gonna deny. I didn't do it. I don't know what she
Tamriel
talking
says,
about. I wasn't there at the time and place of the allegations. That's it.
absolute. Tamriel says, this is good, ladies. Thank you, Tam. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you subscribe to our channel and tune in for some of the other conversations that we have, and even take a look at the Diddy video that we did previously with the whole Cassie settlement. Tamriel says, most people want the legal jargon broke down, no emotions. Yes. The biggest challenge with a lot of these complaints and these cases is people don't understand how the wording and the law works. Like we just read New York statute about what is revenge porn. Now, revenge porn in our definitions might mean one thing. We might visualize and think about revenge porn in one way and look it up in the dictionary. But your dictionary definition or your personal definition is not what matters in a court. What matters is looking at the language that the court has to look to and making sure that as the plaintiff, you have enough to satisfy those pieces. And on the defense side, they're going to try to chip away at everything. They're going to be like, oh, well, he didn't harass her because we have this, he didn't do this to her, he didn't do that to her. And so therefore, we don't have all of these pieces that you need to have. So it's going to be a battle. And if you watch the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial, that was a great example of how a civil case goes. And that case was, I think, specifically defamation. I don't remember if there was some, I think it was two pieces. It was one thing that Amber was filing and it was one thing that he was filing, but he filed against her for defamation. And I think she might have countersued him. We might need to look back at that one to kind of give you an understanding. So Tamriel says, I subscribe. Yay.
Thank you.
Just found you today. Great. I'm so glad we went live today because we were kind of going back and forth about when we're going to go live again. But yep. Crazy and crazier. Oh yeah, that's a perfect example of the Johnny Depp and Amber.
That's
that
pretty
sucker
good.
was out of control.
That is pretty good.
But we just really had a great time with this whole breaking down these court cases because a lot of times we don't really get to talk about this stuff in the way that we'd like to, and we hope to really share some more about these cases. But
I tell you what,
Lisa?
Yeah, I tell you what, these celebrities, it's one thing to make money and that type of thing, but you got to do a lot of work to protect your legacy. And that means letting people in your inner space who can come in and, possibly make false allegations against you, or if you have some vices and things like that, if they're illegal or criminal, then just know that you're opening yourself up to risk of exposure. And you end up in situations like that. But I'm just saying, you have to be really, really smart. Not only make your money, but to protect your legacy. Don't forget that part.
Let me tell you something. When you think Diddy now, you're going to be like, take that. It's not going to mean the same. If you hear bad boy, it's not going to mean the same. Everybody's going to be taking it and transforming it to something else. And everybody, generally speaking, people had some good vibes about Diddy overall. He had some haters. He had some love. He had a bit of everything, but that legacy boy, he has a bunch of kids. I feel really bad for the children who have to go through this.
That's experience. A good part of the legacy. That's not bad to have like a bunch of kids.
No, it's good, but it's bad when you are going through what he's currently experiencing based upon whatever foolishness he was doing over the years. And now all of these things are coming to roost. And now your kids are having to deal with this, your female daughters, right? Your daughters, your sons. I can only imagine what that leaves as a thought process. And I hope that if in fact he did these things that were alleged, that he has to face the music. And
Right.
if he didn't, I hope that he has enough to show that he didn't. Like I hope for his sake that all of this is just stirred up. But again, blood is in the water. Tam just
But
said it. Blood is in
but
the
here,
water already. So
blood
that's a
is
lot.
blood is in the water, like Tam also insinuated there that other folks are going to cut a loose the bad part that's draining money out the pot.
Yeah.
That they'll cut them loose. Now, one last thing, this the plaintiff, she mentioned a lot of stuff that he was known for, and
Oh
she
boy.
did say that he 1992 he founded Bad Boy Records. In 2008, he was the first male rapper to get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 2022, Forbes estimated that Combs was one of the wealthiest hip hop artists in America,
Lisa, I'm
and
gonna
that
pause you
his
real quick.
what?
I love, and this is where I'm going to give the plaintiff attorney props. I love when people just lay out that storyline so they can hit you with all the negatives right on after they say all these great things of these. This is what he was known for. But based
Oh,
on
you
this,
you mean you mean like the one that comes right after where it says that his net worth is was over $1 billion? Right after that, the
yep,
very next paragraph says, upon information and belief, Combs has a history of committing physical and sexual violence against women
all day,
as documented in publicly available lawsuits and
child.
extensive media coverage.
In
You mean
other
that part?
words, look at all these great things that he supposedly did while at the same time being this. And I'm just like, that means nothing unless you're actually going to
Prove
present
it.
something with that. Tam
Prove it.
says correct, because there are many wolves out there who are sitting back saying it's not me, and the facial
It wasn't
expression.
me.
So yeah, these are those situations where, man, you know what? It would be great to see one of these cases play out. Because again, if he in fact did this, not only should he be on blast for all the things that he did, but he should also pay for it, right? If he in fact did this
If
and
I'm his
all of this
lawyer
comes
and
to
he did
roost,
this, I'm saying settle.
look, if I'm his lawyers, I probably settle this junk too. I mean, if he's really worth $1 billion, what this person gonna ask for? I don't know. I mean, if he's worth, what did they say he was worth?
$1 billion with a B.
More than, if he's worth $1 billion, I mean, you probably give a settle, get this person like a 100 million, something.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. This is all I'm saying. We don't have any music tonight because my phone just died right when I was just about to play a Like Whoa by Black Rob. Bad boy.
We can do our own version. Like,
Child,
whoa.
like whoa. That's what this is right here. Like whoa. And Tam says, how different is this from Weinstein? What's interesting is I never followed any of the info. I didn't get into my lawyer following the cases until like this last couple of years. And the Amber Heard trial was the first one that I really, really watched. After years of not really watching cases. So I don't know. I think we should take a look at Weinstein. Lisa, we're gonna put that on our list. We need to take a look back at Weinstein, take a look back at maybe a couple of other scenarios that are very similar to this range of folks who had power and influence, who were charged with different things. Well, did he have criminal charges, or was his was criminal? Weinstein, I
Um,
think, was criminal.
I think it's ooh, yeah, we should go
Was
back and
Weinstein
take a look.
criminal?
We might want to go back and take a look at Weinstein at
Tam,
this
we're going to go
point.
back and take a look at it. And
Yeah,
we'll
we
probably do
will.
another video just to talk about that case and the distinction between that. And maybe even talk a little. We never talked about the Johnny Depp trial, like in depth. We didn't go through the complaint and stuff. We
That's
talked. We
funny. We
talked
never
about the
talked
funny
about
stuff with that
depth and
case.
depth. Yeah.
Weinstein's legacy is trash. I mean, you
Yeah.
messing with Weinstein was messing with, wasn't it
Oh,
kids and adults? Was it like young girls or something like that?
I don't want to. I don't want to say anything until I review that. I
I
don't
don't
know for
remember.
certain.
I don't
Yeah.
remember that case, but I know that there were a lot of celebrities that had came forward about issues that they had with him when they were just coming into their career. But look, there's a lot to be discussed. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in.
Yes,
Those who
thank
are going to
you.
catch the replay, we love when you guys watch the replay and like the video and share it. So please continue to do that. Please click like, please click subscribe, click the notification bell so that you will know the next time that we go live. Because I think we're going to be doing our evening lives at this point. We need to do something a little different. But thank you guys for tuning in. Tam, we
I got
appreciate you
advice for
joining us.
Diddy.
Not advice for You're going to give
Yeah.
advice? All right, I'm going to let you do your thing.
My advice for Diddy is film all of your dates from now on. Your entire from point pickup to dropping them back off to their home, film the entire date. Protect yourself that way. And let you might not want everything to be shown. That's the problem. But if you want to protect yourself, film everything.
Child, my advice for Diddy is just stick with your little young Miami and stop going around doing a bunch of foolishness. That's all you can do.
That works
Tam
too.
says she enjoyed us. We enjoyed you too, Tam. Thank you for
Thank you,
tuning
Tam.
in. And for those who are going to watch the replay, please drop some comments. Let us know your thoughts on another Diddy lawsuit. Let us know where you sit. Tam says no one's sound of mind messing with
It
Diddy.
ain't over. It ain't over. I don't think it's over.
That is facts on facts. Have a good night, guys. We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you for tuning in to Two Lawyers Talk Legacy as we broke down another Diddy lawsuit. Have a good night. See you the next time.
See ya.